What is going on, everybody? Episode 27 of Soft Dump in the Corner, presented by North 6 Sports. Today, we got a very special guest, but before we introduce him, Jordan, how you doing today, bud?
I'm doing pretty well, boys. I'm buzzing today. It's been a good day. For the most part, good day at work. You know, when you have a bad day at work and it really sets the mood off, today was a good day. You know, gotta love that. Otherwise, just it's a good start to the week. You know, just looking forward to this one. I'm super excited about this interview here. It's gonna be a fun one here. Thanks again, Jer, for jumping on. This is super exciting for me in particular. I know Luke knows you a little bit more on a personal level, so hoping the audience can gather a little bit more what you're all about. But thanks again for hopping on, man. This is really exciting for us.
Yeah, so to introduce you, Canadian drummer, played for the big band Our Lady Peace for 21 years, but most importantly, one of the best neighbors you can have, Jeremy Taggart. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, fellas. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
How are things?
Pretty good, man. Yeah. As you know, it's a little crisp day. A little too cold to take care of the last of the leaves. So we're hoping it's going to maybe warm up before Thursday for garbage pickup.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's getting cold. I got the warning on my car this morning. It says warning ice, and I was like, oh god damn it, I'm not. This is brutal.
Yeah. For the first time ever, I got
that's where the old Canadian
tires.
lip sweater comes into play. Gotta keep them lips warm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
first time first time in a long time I've actually got the snow tires on early this year, so I'm ready to rock.
It's a veteran play.
I love it. So we'll get into an intro here. You've been in our neighborhood for what, 2-3 years now?
2 years, yeah.
2 years.
Just over 2 years.
How you liking it?
Love it. It's great.
Yeah.
I have friends who grew up in this neighborhood as well, and always liked it, and even played golf in here back in the day. And yeah, it's nice. It's nice and quiet, and the kids like it. Lots of space for them, and running around in their own rooms and all that. So yeah, it's good.
That's good. Awesome.
And great neighbors, obviously.
There. Yep. No, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. There's lots on this street, which is great, and that's a big thing. I've been around since I think we moved here in 2000 or 1999, and yeah, no shortage of good neighbors here. So it's always awesome. So
yeah, right on.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we'll get started with We'll start with some questions. Always when you get a guest, kind of figure out the origin of your background. What got you into drums when you first started?
Well, my father was a drummer actually. I didn't start playing until I was 14. I was pretty late. But he was a drummer, and I always kind of liked the drums. I just never started until I was 14. And once I started, it was really kind of a fast track. I mean, 3 years later, I was in Our Lady Peace.
Yeah.
I was 17 when I started. So the learning curve was pretty swift, and I did a lot of practicing, and my father was great, and I did study with a lot of great teachers in Toronto, guys like Rick Ratton and Paul DeLong, and just kind of worked my way through as a skill guy and with drums. Like I just looked at it as a trade like anything else, and just really worked my ass off, and I eventually the work did my skill. It got me in a place to be able to play with a band younger, than I normally would have. So, and luck is always involved too, right? When you're starting out a band, you can't expect to have a record deal on the table. We were, we worked hard as well as a band, and we were lucky enough to have success, but based on touring forever and doing lots of, I think we toured Canada 5 times on that first record before we went gold. So wow. There was a lot of work that went into it. We weren't one of those bands that like you heard about on the clubs. It was kind of like we got signed based on the demo, as opposed to, being a club circuit act, but we did the work after the fact, basically. So wow. Yeah, a lot of work and a lot of stuff that was, just touring for 20 years after that, nonstop. And it was a great band to be in. I got to see a lot of the world, and
Oh yeah.
It was I'm very grateful to have that opportunity that we did.
No, that's awesome. And even just to step back, like, how did you hear about Our Lady Peace needing a drummer? Was there a posting? Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, at that time they weren't signed or anything. It was just a local band, so I had been kind of auditioning whatever I could find,
okay.
and I was doing just auditions all the time. And it literally a Now Magazine band looking for a drummer, and I just went to the audition, and in the ad it said that they had a deal, like, or interest in a deal. So that's what brings, there was about 100 drummers that showed up to that rehearsal. So
Wow.
there was a chemistry as soon as we started. So something about
Yeah.
that's something, something to be said about just when you're playing with people and you have a commonality, or there's something you can express yourself with them easy. And that definitely happened right from the go.
Sweet.
So, Jared, talk us through it. So you were 17, I think, right? When you originally got in and met with
Yeah.
those guys there. So, like, talk about that process there. Like going in, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here. Certain venues as a whole, maybe not legal drinking age for you. Like, what's
Oh
all
yeah.
that about in terms of like the process of you getting in, and like how was that all about with you being such a young age at 17 to be able to jump in and do those venues?
Well, the other thing is I was a straight edge kid, right? Like, I didn't drink or anything. So I was always just kind of going into bars. I got used to playing in cover bands and stuff like that, or hanging out at open mic nights with bands at bars. So I think people got used to me coming in and just kind of sticking away from with the musicians and kind of hiding out. But even and once we got on the road with Our Lady Peace, I mean, I think the first two times I was in Vegas, I couldn't gamble. I had to, like, stand behind the ropes watching the other guys playing blackjack.
Yeah,
That
just
was
look.
kind of that was a little weird.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like that's
Yeah, no,
incredible.
it's probably definitely it's a very eye-opening experience for you, right? To be introduced into that scene and obviously, I shouldn't say, and you would know better than we would, and you can gladly touch on it, just the difference around that scene, whether it's just, being exposed and growing so quickly like you guys did back in the day, right? Like you said, a couple of your first albums, they really took off, right? So like talk about that quick growth for you. Like you said,
Yeah.
you're 14 years old, you pick up a set of sticks, and then all of a sudden, 17 years old, you're touring Canada, you're very well known, your face, I mean, it may not be with social media, but your face is out there, you're getting exposure. Like talk about how rapidly that was for growing for you, and like did it change the way that you felt about whether it's yourself or just being able to get comfortable out in that kind of environment? Like talk us through that one there, because that's a
Well,
pretty cool jump.
yeah, once you get into a band and you work on these songs and you have an album that you really like, you kind of feel like you want to push that as far as you can. So once you have a little bit of success, you just keep pushing and pushing. And I mean, it got to the point where on our second record, we were, we had a gold first record, we had American radio play, and we had, and then our second record was even bigger in America and had a major label with Columbia down there. And so we got to go, to next step. And that second record ended up selling 1 million records in Canada, which is like, 10 times platinum. It's called the Diamond
Yeah.
album.
Yep.
Wow.
And very rare to get to, like, it was like us and the Spice Girls going back and forth
Spice
in
Girls.
1998 for
How's
record
that
sales.
for a
So
comparison, eh?
it's so rare to, lucky, like the stars aligned and we're like somehow getting the same recognition as like a mainstream pop band. So um those are the things you can't really control, but it was great that it happened. But yeah, it was pretty wild. But you do kind of, once you get there, you just kind of expect it to be the same. You think that this is it. This is how it is. You sell 1 million records in Canada every time, which is obviously not the case. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you set yourself up for falls too, right? Like, people probably don't realize how we felt so deflated, even though we sold still a 2 or 3 times platinum record. The next, it was like a failure in comparison to Clumsy, which was, sold a lot more. So it's just, the ebb and flow of the music industry is very kind of fickle. And when you're in a band, you can get caught up with charts and radio play and record sales, and it just it starts to, it's got nothing to do with why you started
Yeah.
as a musician, but it all of a sudden becomes everything, because you're watching your kind of life go up and down on the charts, and once you see it go up there, you're like, okay, well, you want to maintain that, so you go along a lot of roller coaster rides for sure.
Yeah, and even just super quick too, like just obviously like you mentioned there, right? Like dealing with coping with the pressure, right? Pressure within, pressure as a band to produce. I'm sure you probably sit here and you guys probably had 100 songs that are unreleased, right? Those you guys just go through and you're practicing, kind of finding your sound and everything. And then you got the pressures of the record companies that are constantly making sure that you guys are getting new stuff out, keeping your name out there, right? So like what was it like as a whole with the pressure, and like did you guys feel that? Was it something that you guys just kind of went with it and just sort of seemingly handled well? Like what was that like?
Yeah, I mean that like I said, it really becomes something that you kind of you just are, and like you want more and more, because
Yeah,
with all the other stuff that comes with, like press and just people spreading your name, you're campaigning for yourself constantly, right?
yeah,
So yeah, it's a weird way to be, but it's like once you do something like that, it's actually kind of invigorating, because you're controlling all these aspects, in which if you're in another type of business or working another job, you don't have any of that kind of control. So sure, you can have ups and downs, but it's at the same time that there's something great about doing something on your own, and a vision that you're trying to accomplish. And I mean, I found the same thing with the podcast that I do with Jonathan Torrens. It's small. It doesn't produce a lot of monetization, but it's just really fun, and there's an audience, and you cultivate that, and there's something really special about that, having that kind of a something that you can voice your opinion, and be a part of your life, and just kind of, it goes along with you in your life. But it's something that you can completely control, and you have say in how it goes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was there a city on tour that you're always looking forward to go to, or was any?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure. I mean, I love, a lot of American cities like New York, and I love New Orleans, and depending on what you're looking for whether it's barbecue in Texas, or the sights of San Francisco or
yeah.
California in general. It's just, there's a lot of great spots. I mean, I love London. England is an amazing place. Paris is
Wow, yeah,
like anywhere you're walking around and you just see so much history right in front of you. Those are the places I love. I love, like, New York is probably one of my favorites, just because of the feeling that you get when you're there. Like it just it's unmatched in terms of the energy that's in the air.
yeah, yeah. Were you able to bring the twigs with you when you went on tour?
Oh yeah, for sure. Got a lot of golf always. I was kind of the guy that set up the rounds,
Nice.
and got everybody on the golf course. I got to know so many pros and people in the industry in America and Canada, and I mean that's a huge part of my life too. Just golf and the people in the golf industry, and just playing it, and supporting it, and when you have a lot of buddies that are doing that as a life, you kind of you get you're keeping up on it.
Yeah,
Were you
that's
the
Yeah,
guy that went out on the course and you were dropping a couple side bets here, a little birdie there, a couple bucks
sure.
here and there, or
Oh
what?
man, yeah, big time, always.
God, I gotta,
Hardcore,
I love it. Yeah,
like
you got to
like
win that money
fifth.
back, right? A little beer money.
Sure, no, it wasn't. Yeah, it was hundreds of dollars, and sometimes thousands. Yeah, it started getting out of hand.
Yeah, yeah,
Gambling is terrible for a band, like, because it starts to get really vindictive, and you lose, and you start getting mad, and then there's like animosity, and like next thing you know, like I remember we were in Denver, and we almost broke up over like betting on Halo in the back lounge. And then also like we had like a cheeseburger eating contest and stuff, like trying to eat like 7 burgers in like 10 minutes. Just stupid stuff that just when you're on the road for too long, you start to do, and you end up becoming like a social experiment, and it's not good. Like you end up
Yeah,
hating the people that are around you no matter what if you're in the same space too long.
that's funny. I know you mentioned to me that you mentor the Arkells, and a band that's, I wouldn't say upcoming. They're there. I feel like they're
Oh yeah.
touring into big cities. So how did that all start? And like, yeah,
Well, actually, that's interesting because it ties in with the golf industry a bit. Because the drummer Tim Oxford, his dad Max Oxford used to be the president of Titleist,
okay,
and Max came to me once and he asked to have a drum lesson with Tim.
okay.
He paid for it for like a Christmas present or something.
Oh, nice.
So that's how I got to meet Tim, and he was only 15 or 16 at the time, and I just kind of maintained a relationship with Max, and then that grew into Tim getting more serious with the drums, and always asking questions and just hanging out and being a one of those people who was just very inquisitive. And every little band that he started to have, I was kind of helping out and giving advice. And then once the Arkells, they were Charlemagne when they started, and they were in Hamilton, and they were all met through school, and
Yeah.
Tim wasn't down there, but I think he met through one of the musicians in the band at the time and started playing with them. And Tim has he has he went to school for engineering, so he's actually got some skills with production as well. He does production with the Arkells now, but back then he did the kind of the recording, so they would go to his basement and record, and I would kind of help them out with their songs and give them advice for their live show, go to the shows, listen to the songs, help them with their set, whatever else. And they were just always, whatever I told them, they suck it up like a sponge, and just
Mm-hmm.
they were working 7 days a week, whether they were playing shows or not. So it was just a matter of time in my mind that they were going to become successful. So I just tried to steer them in the right direction to the right people, and they took it from there.
Damn.
We're still very close to this day. Me and Tim talk every day almost, and
Oh, nice.
it's great to see that, from when he was 15 and I was in that position, now he's in that position, and actually he's the one who lived in this neighborhood that I live in right now. Like, so I
Yeah.
was coming up to this neighborhood when he was a kid. Now he's coming up to here when he's the big star. So
That's
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Jared, so like even just speaking on that, like in terms of, inspiration and like, people that either you looked up to or now that you've got a couple people that obviously look up to you, right, as a mentor and being there, like who were some of the people when you either, before you got into everything or even as you were in that kind of process of going through, like who were some of those people that kind of really stood out to you inspiration wise or mentor wise? And like, obviously you touched on, having a part of the development of, Arkells and where they are today and being a helpful hand there, but who else might, kind of give a little shout out to in terms of where that has come along from?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like people, I've always had older musician friends. Like I said, my drum teachers were always helpful, and the bands that I hung out with in Toronto before, we started to do anything big. But also just like the other older bands that would help us, like the Tragically Hip guys, are always amazing with it. And
Shout out to the hip.
I still talk to Paul all the time,
Yeah.
and I feel that those guys were kind of we had a slogan in the band, like if the hip did it, then we would do it. If they didn't do it, then we wouldn't do it. So we kind of got, everything that they did, we did, and they did a TV show, we did it. If they wouldn't do a show, we wouldn't do it. So they were our barometer to kind of what was cool or what wasn't cool. And they were always happy to give advice, and great people. It's such a sad situation with Gord, and to see how that happened, and the fact that they should have been, going on for decades. They were just one of those bands, and but I still talk to to Paul and Gord as well, the bass player Sinclair, and they're great folks. Johnny, great drummer, just awesome guys, man. Just really down to earth. And I think a lot of the Canadian bands were kind of like that. I mean, 5440 was our first opening tour, and I Mother Earth was another band that we kind of grew up with and helped each other when we could. And there's just been a lot of awesome Canadian people that have been supportive for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Obviously, American bands too. I mean, Van Halen were nice enough to take us on tour very early, and Robert Plant called our manager from his limousine, and we ended up opening for Plant and Page as well, and then the Ramones, and like all these crazy bands within the first 3 months of going on the road in America. It was pretty crazy.
Damn.
Yeah, not a big deal.
That's sick.
Yeah.
On my end here, I got one more question for the interview before we get into a little sports action. But
sure.
Any cool stories you had on tour, like when you're touring around North America or overseas, like anything that sticks out to you that you really enjoyed your time out there?
Yeah, well, I mean, with especially because athletes on tour, like I played baseball as well. I didn't say that, but I played baseball before I played drums, to the point where I played for Ontario AAA baseball, and then New York All Stars in Toronto, and just a lot of high level baseball from the age of 5 to 16. And I went from literally baseball to drums, and my dad was so adamant about me playing baseball and pitching and hitting that he was like, he didn't care about high school. He just wanted me to play baseball. When I was like, I want to play drums, he was pissed off, really mad, because he's like, I failed doing that. I quit playing drums. So he was a professional drummer for about 15 years, and he quit because he just couldn't support the family in the late 70s. So he wasn't happy with me doing it.
Oh.
He thought, I might go, but I got a little more lucky. But so baseball was a huge part of my life before the being in Our Lady Peace. But once we hit the road in America, I was going to games, and eventually became buddies with players. Like Johnny Damon became a good friend to this day, and I ended up moving in with Sean Avery for a few years in Los Angeles, and Brad Norton, living with a couple LA Kings. Actually, when Sean lived with Brett Hull, I stayed with him for a while down in Detroit with the Red Wings. So they were getting banged up at the post with Manny Legacy.
That's
just
pretty sweet.
Crazy times, man. Good people though.
I couldn't imagine. I think everyone's kind of heard different, stories about Sean Avery. How is he as a person, with you?
He's fine. It's music. He loves music, and he's fun. Believe me, he's a fun guy to hang out with. He's a kind of a 20 questions type person. Well, he just constantly asks you questions, and he loves putting people on the spot, and he likes to make people feel, I guess, uncomfortable. If he really knows you, really fucks with you, right? He's always I wouldn't recommend being his roommate to anybody. It was not cool or a good idea, because he literally would wake me up in the morning, calling me names and or fatso or whatever. Just terrible. We would have fights as much as we'd have laughs, but I mean, he's just he's an interesting guy for sure.
Oh, God, I bet. Yeah.
I got another quick one here, just to kind of touch up and just kind of finalize on the music side here, and by all means, we can kind of go for a little bit of different direction here, but just in terms of Clumsy, right? The album, of course, I think a lot of people would kind of think, when they think Our Lady Peace, a lot of those songs would come in and to mind with that one there. In terms
Sure.
of you guys, like putting that together, producing that, getting that out on the road, like what did that kind of mean to you guys in terms of how quickly it got you guys on the board, you know, in terms of how people still listen to those songs today and can enjoy them, right? You can just throw
Yeah.
those on the cottage playlist and there's no real bad songs on those albums, right? Which is fantastic. But just in terms of what that did to you guys as a band, what it did to you, you know, individually as a whole, just kind of walk us
Yeah.
through just putting out, like you said, that platinum album, just getting to that status and what it kind of meant to you to kind of set you guys forward in your career.
Well, I mean, it really kind of cemented us into the fabric of Canada, definitely. So anybody who was growing up from, 1994, 5 to 2000, you heard our songs on the radio or saw a video on Much every 10 minutes. Like it was nonstop. And here, look, I got.
Is that an Ass Man license plate in the background?
Yeah, it is. My daughter got it for me for Christmas last year. We love Seinfeld. But here's the diamond record for
I
Clumsy.
love it.
Oh, that's so
Here's
cool.
Got the little diamond in there.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
too, so if I'm correct, you guys wanted to name that album Trapeze, correct?
Yeah, because the song, but there was I think we didn't even end up using that song, but like, yeah, there was like just the whole, because we dug that artwork that Kevin Westenberg did, the artwork, and it was just so cool how he portrayed him in that way. Saul, the guy who was the same guy on our first album cover. So yeah, it was going to be called Trapeze until we didn't use that song, I think, and then we decided to go with Clumsy just because we thought that song was going to do well as it did.
Yeah, I think you made the right decision on that one.
Yeah,
safe to say.
for
Whoever
sure.
made that executive decision, they definitely earned the stripes on that one.
Yeah, no, but we kind of, we knew that it was a good record. We didn't expect it to sell what it did, but again, yeah, it really kind of nailed us into the history, and that's just a forever thing. Like when you can play songs that bring nostalgia to somebody and bring memories, that's a huge asset to have as a band.
I got one last one on the music side.
Okay.
Well, I love this chat, man. I could go on all day, I promise. All right, just a quick answers. Favorite song to play live, and song you've played so many times that you just don't even want to play anymore.
Oh, there's plenty of songs I don't want to ever play. Like most of the singles from the last couple records I was on, like I don't even remember them already. Like I can't even. But like, songs that I love are obviously a song like "Stealing Babies," which had Elvin Jones on it, which was my hero drummer. That I believe there's a photo of him back there.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of stuff in here signed from him. Got to get to know him really well. So to be able to play with Alvin Jones in the studio was a huge highlight for me. So other than that, I mean, I'm just kind of along, I'm my role as a drummer is always just, creating a pocket and getting everybody off their seats. And then basically just kind of the crowd takes me at that point. I start the ride and then everybody kind of, you follow through and then just keep rolling.
Yeah, love it. I always picture that intro on Innocent all the time. Anytime I hear that, I'm like, yeah, that's the one. And now it's like, all right, I got face to name now. It's like, yeah,
that's it.
I love it.
For sure.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate that. That's some wicked. We'll move into some sports.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll start off with the old Maple Leafs. I mean, that's just an easy intro into, especially our podcast being, soft dump in the corner, hockey related.
Well, and again, I mean, this is one of those things like this team, right? These players, like this is kind of, it doesn't get any closer to the best that we've ever had in this city. So, a couple things happen, a couple stars align, this could be something special. So you got to pay attention, right? You got to pay attention.
It's a bit, it's a big thing. And
right? It's crazy right now, man, because everybody's playing well, like what Nylander's doing. It's like, it's Like everybody kind of, you seeing him do that. It's like, okay, so this is what he's supposed to be doing all the time because he's really trying to get paid. You know, like that's a huge thing.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but once that fire kicks in with everybody, there's just so much talent on this team in comparison with other teams. It's just they haven't really shown working together like that yet. So, like, I don't know any other team that has this kind of like depth in terms of like the goal scoring. Like nobody really.
There's not many, no. And like the biggest
Like
question,
maybe defense and
yeah,
goaltending, sure, but in terms of like the amount of offense that's there, it's kind of
yeah,
like the Blue Jays, similar, right? Like if you look at the on paper, what should be happening with the Blue Jays in terms of run percentage, like production,
Yeah.
I
it's
know.
through the roof. And right now, the Leafs are getting close to actually all those things happening. Everybody just doing their job, and they don't have to do anything other than their job, right?
Yeah, with Willie, I mean, I think the big question coming in is Willie playing himself out of a contract? And I want to say yes, unless they start moving pieces around. Like Treliving's got a lot of work to do.
You mean like you mean like playing himself out because he'll be worth too much
I think
if
he's
he
going to be
plays too
wanting too
well?
much money. Yeah, like I'm thinking he's probably in that 10 to 11 range right now, as much
I
as
know, see, but they could have probably got it done for 9 or 8 something
9. Yeah,
already before the
I
year
know.
started.
I think they're kicking
And now
themselves in the ass.
he's like, oh, now you fucked up. But you know what? They wanted him to prove himself to do, like, it is a cheaper move to be like, okay, show me what you can do, because that's what every cheap boss does, right? Instead of paying
Yeah,
you, closer to what you halfway. Now he's going to get the 10 million for
Oh,
sure,
easily.
and can they pay that, right?
And that's the big question. What do you think, Gord?
I was just
Gordo?
about to say, so I'm just sitting here like, just taking it all in right here, right? I mean, honestly, man, like it's such a weird situation, right? Like you look at what Matthews did, he bridge dealed twice now, right? He bet on himself, put up 60, got 13 mil. You look at what Marner got right out of gates, arguably not doing much as what Willie Nylander did, but I always make this, I'm like, you look at what Nylander's first contract was, people will sit there and be like, oh, he's going to make way more money, do this, do that. In my opinion alone, he was way overpaid in his first 3-4 years of the first deal that he ever got, right? They
Mm-hmm.
gave him that money and said, okay, prove it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't
Yeah.
really until Marner came into play, Matthews got drafted one, that obviously helped significantly kickstart that team as a whole, right? But yeah, it's one of those weird things. Like I'm definitely in the ballpark of sitting here saying, like, me personally as a GM, would I give him 10 and a half? No. As a whole, I mean, I
Somebody
could
else will, though, 100%.
100%,
That's the thing. So, like,
100%.
if you don't, someone else will, and then you just lost a big piece of the puzzle. So now you're back where you start. The bottom line is, can they afford to pay him with the cap, or is paying
Yeah.
him 10 ruin it for defense and goaltending going
Yeah.
forward? Is that it?
Well, another thing too, you got to consider, right? In terms of young draft capital, young draft prospects that are going to come in and play on entry level contract deals, they've given all those guys up. They've already traded away a lot of their draft picks. They can't sit there and say, okay, I've got 3 or 4 guys in my bottom 6 that are making $750 a year, right? Tough thing
Yeah.
with their position right now is they are absolutely in win now mode. Right.
Oh
There's
yeah.
no doubt about it. And like you said, Jeremy, like honestly, at the beginning there is it's a perfect example. Like they're playing the best that they ever have. And like you said, I don't like to admit it, but I know of it damn straight. They're one of the
Yeah.
best offensive teams in the league. Tough to
Oh yeah.
compete with their speed, their skill. They're going to outscore the best of them. And a great example with the Blue Jays, they're doing the exact opposite of what the Jays were doing this year. Jays
Yeah.
pitching was what, top 3 or 4 or
I
5 in the
know.
league or
And
something.
no one was hitting
And their
nothing.
offense was junk. It's like
They're
the
leaving
Leafs are
everybody on base.
100%. You just need average goaltending. I mean, Luke and I have talked about it for quite some time now. You look at what the Avalanche did the past couple of years, or just specifically to when they won the cup. They had like 900 goaltending, just kind of mid-tier goaltending, but they won, right? I think the Leafs have a great chance. It's going to be tough based on where they finish, of course, but it doesn't matter what the Leafs do in regular season. The pressure is on them when it comes to playoffs, right? We all know that. At this point in time, it's all about what have you done for me in the playoffs, right? So it's going
And
to
they
be
don't
interesting this year.
when do they have to they'll probably have to do this deal in July probably, or is this? Do you think this will happen before the end of the year?
July 1 is the day, right, where he
Yeah.
would be an RF. He's a UFA, right?
Yeah, he will be UFA. So I don't know if it's me. I wanted that deal done last year. But
Yeah.
when you look at it now, you're gonna have to move a piece if you want to keep him.
Right
Or
now, like, would you have to move a piece this year though, or is this like you go all in and pay him? Or that's the thing, you win the freaking cup with them, and then they're gonna
the
they
thing
cut
is,
ties.
yeah,
That's
100%. And
that would
you
be
know what?
the bittersweet like reality of if if the Leafs actually got through,
Yeah.
you'd have to probably lose some of those guys. That's
And at the end of the day, in any sports franchise, you go talk to any owner. If you win it, it was worth it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But you also got to look into too, like Muzzin and Murray both give you a LTIR space. That's where they're going to have to go hard at the trade deadline. But it's not about, who you bring in. It's about making sure that piece fits, right? Dubas obviously tried the last couple seasons, didn't really pan out in the playoffs, of course, but you got to go all in with this Leafs team regardless of which. And obviously we know after next season that 11 mil comes back off the books with Tavares. But what I keep bringing up to people is, what if he doesn't walk? What if Tavares comes back and re-signs for 1 year, at 4 or 5 mil or whatever? You don't open up 11 mil. You only open up 6, 7, right? So that's an interesting one for sure when we're talking Leafs in particular.
And that, are you saying that money would include like a 10 Nylander, or is that not? You can't do that at that point.
So what I mean is, like, if Tavares 11 comes off the books and then he re-signs next season at 4 or 5 mil, it's not really a full 11 that comes off, right? So the Leafs are obviously going to hope that cap space goes up big time in the next few years to make that work, but their window is going to close quicker than it's going to stay open, right?
Yeah.
It's very rare you get a run like Tampa did, where you get 3 years in a row basically in that cup final. That's a very, very difficult piece, but those guys signed early in their careers and made sure that they were playing at a reasonable cap hit, right? Whereas you look at the Leafs and, no discredit to what they did, and those guys got paid, but you look at some of those contracts and think they're not necessarily team friendly, right? But to each their own.
That's the problem with the NHL, man.
Yeah,
the cap is BS.
Yeah,
these guys have way too much money, and like it doesn't make sense that they can't start really getting nuts when you can gamble on every single thing. And how much money are they making on gambling? They should have another like $50 million each team to play with.
Yeah, or at least a cheeseburger eating contest or something.
Yeah, something.
I know a guy that'll eat you under the table, apparently.
Cheeseburger eating contest. Yeah. Yeah. No, but isn't that ridiculous? Like, it doesn't make sense when you see other athletes making $30 million a year,
Well, bench players in the NBA, I think, are making just as much as McDavid.
Yeah, for sure.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I just...
But, they're playing smaller arenas. Oh, well, but now you're saying, I thought you guys were right there with the big three, right?
Yeah.
They talk the game until you ask them about paying the players more. Then they all of a sudden go, oh, we're just the NHL, we're little.
So I got one for you, Jerry. So over the course of the years, you've obviously said you've met with quite a few players. You've seen, obviously, I would imagine, quite a few sporting events. Have you been at any like sporting events or games in particular that you're like, wow, this was like memory bank?
Salt Lake, man. I was at the gold medal game, Salt Lake.
Come on. Okay, tell us about that. Tell us about that. You got to go full detail.
That to me would be the number one.
So just going over that team, right? Over that team again, real quick. So would have been there. Sakic, Lemieux, Yzerman, all the home. Okay, talk to us about that one. Give us your experience.
My good buddy John Kawaja, who at the time was working with Adidas Golf. I was in Vancouver recording at the time, and he's like, "Hey, man, I got a ticket to the gold medal game and a few other hockey games. Come on down."
Don't mind if
I do. I flew down to Salt Lake City, and I was like sleeping on like a chair in the Adidas house.
I'm sure. After a few sodas, I'm sure it
Like
wasn't
this.
the worst uncomfortable
Oh
chair,
no, it
eh?
was great. Oh, it was for sure. But I was literally like in the, the ski people, like the team houses, or like just a bed here. Like tonight you got to sleep here. Tomorrow you got to go on this couch, right? But I was like, whatever, man. I'm going to the hockey game on Sunday or whatever the last game was, and they were just pummeling everybody. They were like just crushing everybody. Even that game, they were just in. There was
Yeah.
not one moment where I was like, "This is gonna go the other way." They were just dominating the whole time, and it was a tiny arena, right? Like it was not that big, that arena. Like it was like I don't know, probably like maybe 7,000 people or something in there. It was not.
Oh wow.
So it was like almost like being in a barn up here. But the play was just it was so good. It was so good. And then I ended up we ended up talking our way into the gold medal party with all the players and everything. I saw Steve Thomas, Stumpy Thomas, and
Stumpy?
Cujo, Curtis Joseph, who I
Yeah.
played golf with both those guys at the National.
Yeah.
They were like, "Come on in." So I got all these people in. I'm like fucking around. I'm like, Steve Nash is there, like everybody, all the Gretzky, like even in the lineup to go to the game, I'm standing with Walter Gretzky, in the lineup. It was just, it was
Holy.
nuts, man. It was like such a great time, for sure.
Like just looking at that roster, I mean, you're probably in that room, in that environment. You're just looking
Yeah,
at Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer, right?
everybody
Ballot
was
Hall of
on that
Famers.
team.
I'm just kind of,
Everybody on that team was a Hall of Fame. I think from Iserman to frickin' Draper to like everybody was on that team.
yeah, I've got
Oh
it up in
yeah.
front of me here real quick. I'll label it out just so everyone can kind of drop an awe here.
Yeah.
Sakic, Lemieux, Iserman,
Pronger was
McKinley,
on there.
Pronger, Scott Niedermeyer, like Eric Lindros, Cujo, Marty Brodeur, Al McInnes. Like it's a list. It's a Hall of Fame game. It's an
Yes, it was
absolute
like,
Hall of Fame game.
so the party was just like unbelievable, man. It was nuts.
What was your view like for who scored that goal where Lemieux put it through his legs and let it go? Who scored the goal on that one?
Active maybe?
Maybe where Lemieux let it go through his skates. Do you remember that goal? Seeing it live?
Yeah, I remember every goal. I just can't remember exactly
Yeah.
who scored
I
them.
think you may have been.
I bet you that
Sackler.
environment must have been pretty wild in that
Yeah,
arena
when
too.
the guys from the hip were like right behind me too. Like
Oh.
it was awesome, man.
What was it like being around the village as a whole? Because you were there.
Yeah,
How
it was
long?
great because the hip were playing a couple nights there too, and
Oh, sweet.
the village was all, I knew a lot of people, like guys like Brian Stemmels, a good friend of mine, and just a lot of just bros hanging, just getting banged up.
Getting You don't have to twist my arm on a good time, eh?
Yeah, it was pretty nuts.
That's
Wow.
amazing, man. That's really cool. That's really cool. What about
That's
even just
great.
kind of just quick flip back to the music side? Like, do you remember being at any certain venues or like festivals, anything like that you can kind of say were like extremely memorable for you?
Woodstock '99, man, that was pretty. That was really nuts, right?
What was your experience like on that?
We played on Sunday at 3:00, like just a couple hours before the Peppers went on and the big fire and all that shit.
My God, man.
So yeah,
what
we
was that
saw
experience like?
Well, I didn't go. I went out once when I was we went in Saturday and we played Sunday. So I watched, Limp Bizkit and Korn and Metallica and Rage Against the Machine side stage on the Saturday night. And like Metallica were playing. I was like, I'm going to go see what it's like out front. I went out for like maybe 6 or 7 steps. And I was like, it looked like hell. Like people were like, ah. Like going crazy. Like I've never seen. It was like a level of people just have lost their marbles, man. So I just ran backstage and I never went out again. I didn't know. I just thought everybody was all fucked up on whatnot, meth or whatever.
Man, what an experience!
But I didn't
that
know
must
they
have
were
been.
like. I didn't know they had no water and like everything was like they were freaking losing their minds. But it was pretty bad, apparently, all just frying on tarmac all day.
Yeah, and for anybody listening, like if you haven't watched it on Netflix, they got a really cool documentary on that Woodstock '99. It's
Yeah.
it's a couple hours worth of your time. Unbelievable.
Crazy.
That would have been unbelievable. I definitely recommend it. But like even you said, what a lineup, right? All the tremendous musicians there, you know, groups there, bands there, everything. That must have been pretty cool to be a part of.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. To play in front of that many people was quite an experience for sure.
Oh,
Jesus.
yeah, absolutely.
You can fire. The whole show's on YouTube. Our show. Yeah.
Oh, wicked. Yeah,
Definitely have to check that one out. That's for
And
sure.
you know, because the cameras and the audio were great. So any band that you saw there, you can just YouTube it and you'll see it.
Oh, that's so damn
That's
cool,
so
man.
cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna drag it back to sports here.
Yeah.
I mean, big news coming out of the golf world. I think all of us have heard Tiger's committed to the Hero World Challenge. It's nice to see him back. Obviously, the devastating injury that he left himself with, the compound fracture in his leg. I think a lot of people were doubting his return. I mean, Tiger's Tiger. He's been through, I don't know what he hasn't been through. So it's just exciting to see him back. I think the viewership, even for that tournament, is going to be huge. I mean, Tiger's arguably the best player that we've ever seen, and just the mentality he brings, not even just to golf, but I think to any other athlete. It's almost like the Michael Jordan look, where like he's got that mental game that can beat anybody. So it's nice to see him back. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but I'm happy to see him back in the field and competing again, to be honest.
Like as soon as I saw that collapsed PGL league thing, I was like, well, if Tiger's coming out, that's all they need. They don't need to add anything for people to watch, right? Like that's the needle right there. Like he doesn't have to make the cut to have people just go bananas.
He's
So
there.
anytime
all matters.
you can have him just stand around a bit, and it's fine. Like I'm surprised he did. You know, he stayed away from the Ryder Cup. That was interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know what the deal was with that, but
I doubt it was his decision.
You know,
I bet if you asked him to play, he'd probably play.
Well, just to be there though, as a like a support guy.
Yeah,
I don't understand that. You know, especially in Europe when they need all the help that they can get. But I don't know. I guess maybe they're ramping up to him coaching or being the
head guy.
the team boss
captain.
next time. Captain choicer. I think that if that happens, then it'll probably. But I mean, he doesn't care because it's going back to America. He's like, yeah, I'll do this one. I'm gonna win for sure, right? No one wants to do the away games.
Yeah, exactly. Healthy scratch when we go on the road.
Like it's funny that they give it to Zach Johnson of all the captain's picks you could think. It's like, yeah, he's not exactly like the top tier guy, right? It's like kind of like it's more of a you know, just a sheep to throw in there to be sacrificed.
Yeah.
You know,
big thing too. International, the President's Cup's coming to Montreal next year. I couldn't be more excited to see this venue back in Canada. Jerry, I know we talked about this a bunch about how many Canadians are going to make this team. I mean, Canadian golf has evolved so much over the years, and it's just so nice to see like Pendrith and Taylor and Connors and Mackenzie Hughes just take another step in their game. Hughes looked good yesterday. It's just Auberg looked pretty damn good after shooting minus 29. But what do you guys think? There's a good chance for a few of those guys to make that international team, and I'd be more than excited. Even to go would be unbelievable.
I think it's important for Weirzy to, you know, he's going to be a captain, so I think it's important to have a bunch of Canadians.
Yeah.
It's being in Montreal. I went to the last time it was there, and it was a great experience. Like even though they didn't win, but like when Weirzy beat Tiger, like in that singles match, like that was almost like the Ryder Cup in itself at the time. And
literally,
I'm gonna definitely go. Hopefully, Luke, you can come with into this year, and we'll check it out in person again.
I would love to. And then Montreal's a fun town. Oh my God, I've had my times there. Oh God damn,
it's the best. It's awesome.
It's definitely good for golf, I think, even too, just growing the game in another country. Obviously, we know the US and we have the European background, but just to see some success coming out of Canada too. Even Brooke Henderson on LPGA too has really solidified her name in the top ranks there. But I think it's big, right? I was thinking about today, like a lot of the, a lot of big moments that have come in golf. You don't think Canada, right? Obviously, Weirsy, huge moment. But when you think about it, like, what was the last big thing out of the PGA Tour? Like maybe Live as a whole, and that's since died down, right? So you kind of ebbs and flows. Obviously, Tiger coming back in. No matter when Tiger plays, it's a big event. People want to see it. People want to be drawn to it. But obviously, something like this could really be. If something big happens, I think it's great for the game. And, obviously the better they play, the more, exposure they get, that type of stuff. But it's always exciting when you see it, right? Obviously watching, who just won the Canadian Open last name?
Nick Taylor.
Taylor,
Yeah.
right? I was thinking of Hadwin, but then I'm thinking, security guard linebacker.
But it's
him
still
on
another
18.
great Canadian golfer, though, man. Like, it's funny how many there are.
Yeah.
And even too, like it goes on and on.
Like I was joking there, right? Nick Taylor drains that 70-foot eagle putt, and all we remember is Hadwin just getting linebackered on the middle of the green, just champagne bottle flying everywhere.
That's one thing that people don't realize is I would think outside of America has their I think per capita there's more golf freaks in Canada per capita, I think, than anywhere other than in maybe Britain or the crazy original golfers. Seems to me that golfers, there's a ton of insane Canadian golfers that just love it. A lot, way more than, because golf's one thing about golf in Canada, in the States, golf's a lot cheaper to play. In Canada, it's freaking expensive every single place you go. Doesn't matter East Coast, West Coast. It's insanely expensive, man.
Well, we got to get
People
a year's.
just love it.
We got to get a year's worth of golf in 6-7 months, right? So that's also a big factor there, of course, right? But you are right. It is interesting just in terms of dollar value, right? But we also too, our courses here, we like to maintain them like they're Augusta, and that's what's causing the prices to go up, right? People forget what golf's all about. It's just whacking a little ball into a little hole, right? It doesn't matter at some point or another, but it is interesting the dollar value you're spending nowadays for a green fee. You're looking at 80 something bucks, and for
find me a place for $80. I'll join there tomorrow.
Well, hey, Jared, we can't all sit here and play the national here, all right?
No, but I'm saying you can't even find a place for $80. You can't.
Yeah.
It's $110.
Yeah, Jerry, I know you touched on knowing Pendrith, and you've had the opportunity to play with him. What stands out when you're playing with Dad and I guess, versus a PGA Tour player? The mental side, the skill.
For one thing, it's the distance in which Taylor hits the ball. It's just he hits his drives. I can barely see the ball land, and also the consistency. We went to St. George's, and Pendy had never been there before. He went to the tips. He shot 63 with a bogey.
With a bogey.
Never been there before. We played in Barrie Country Club. We'd never been there before. They set the pins up diabolically, and the greens were 15. He still shot 65. I think one off the course record. He'd never been there. So you just see just a difference. It's another, and just the gears are they'll miss a green, but never even even if the ball's 7 feet away, they make the 7-footer. It's just there's a difference to make a par than to just make. You know what I mean? They get up and down. They somehow the scrambling. They'll do something that's more difficult than you think, with no problem.
Just
control that consistency.
Yeah, controlling the mishits, right? Making sure,
But when there's a problem, fixing that, as opposed you miss a birdie putt from 7 feet, but they won't miss that par putt for 7 feet. It's the grind and just the discipline, and then the actual talent. And
I was just going to, you said it perfect. I was just about to say the discipline, right? Even just course management, not knowing a course as a whole, playing to what their strengths are, but it is pretty interesting.
These guys work so they're hitting freaking thousands of balls a week, and it's every day. they're playing golf, they're practicing golf, they're mentally trying to get better at golf, they're working out to make their bodies perform better at golf. Like, it's just everything that they do is designed to get them better at golf. And obviously family and all that, they're loving people and great folks and, you know, enjoying life, but just the work ethic that goes into the game, it's unbelievable.
It's the best when you sit there and listen to them hit, even just on the driving range, listen to them hit balls. It's just smooth and smooth and smooth. And, you know, I step on the tee and it's like I'm kicking it. It's like I'd be happy to hit the golf club right here.
I know. Yeah.
Oh,
Believe
it's
me.
amazing. That's a pretty cool experience.
But that's also great about golf is you can get a birdie when they make a par, you know, like it can happen. You know, that's what's awesome about golf.
And then you never let it down.
Oh,
you'd be
no,
like, you know what? Dating back on 100%. This day, I was better than you on one hole. So you know what?
Hole, remember that?
Yeah. You owe me a drink.
A buddy of mine played with Rory McIlroy at St. George's in the practice round there at the last year. And he made a birdie on 12, and Rory made par, and he was just like, and even Rory was like, "Oh yeah, like right?
Never
like,
playing again. Sticks are going away forever." Yeah, he might as well just walk.
Time. Rory, that was his first time he had played St. George's, was that practice round, and then it was Wednesday, and he won it. Like, that's another example of like, come on, man, unreal.
And that's even to show too, right? Like we were talking about earlier, like there's a difference between being professional golf, but being PGA golf, and then being #1 in the world.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's so crazy the differences, right? It's like, you know, like you touched on just even NHL, NBA, you look at any sport as a whole, the difference between the best of the best is so incredibly wide range. And it's just amazing when you look at that in perspective. And then like you get to play it and see it, you know, periodically there. Like, I don't think Luke and I have really had a chance and the luxury of playing with, you know, those types of players. Like, you know, when I go out with Luke, I sit there and of course watch.
Exactly. I do the same thing when Luke, when he's playing. It's like, yeah, I wish I could hit the ball like that.
Yeah, I would see when I'm in awe, it's more like watching him duck hook 150 yards in the right. And then I'm just like, okay, yeah, he's normal. He's normal. Yeah. Right? And then he'll go on a stretch and go 4 birdies out of 5 holes. I'm like, okay, well, I should probably put a couple extra reps in the practice range here.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
If anybody has played the tour, like you just like they could not be playing on the tour for 20 years and then like just play with you and they'll just rake everybody around. Like if you made it to that level and had some success, and a success can mean keeping your card for more than 5 years. That to me is massive, right?
Yeah.
Just to do that, those guys can drill anybody 10 times over without even a question or a thought. Like anybody.
Yeah.
For sure.
Such a mental grind with golf too, right? That's the biggest thing for sure, right?
20 years.
Yeah. Like a good example would be like Omar Uresti, who's a good buddy of mine, like who's just been around for a long time. Yeah, we saw him at the and it's like that guy, like why he will drum you sideways every single way. Like these guys are just, they have this unbelievable talent that you know, it's nothing to them. They've already passed that level that we can't comprehend, and it's just like it's part of the deal, you know.
Who was that golfer a little while back? It was kind of during the front end of Tiger's reign. Was it David Duval that was just lighting it up?
#1 for a bit.
Just dialed in, couldn't lose, and then just basically fell off tour. Like that's always baffled me, right? You look at hockey or, you know, basketball, whatever, you might lose a little bit of your hands or whatever, but if you can still skate or you have certain skills or whatever, golf is just one of those ones. If you lose it, the 6 inches between your ears, it's nuts. But then, like we all know, right? You can go out and just randomly have one day where everything clicks.
For sure. And like David Duval was #1 in the world, and then he actually won the British Open, and that was when he kind of was like started to fade out.
It's crazy.
But he could still, I guarantee you, play him tomorrow.
Oh yeah, like
It's like anybody, your club champ, take your pro, and he's like just lamb.
We could go 3v1 scramble, us versus him, and he'd probably still go shoot 64. Like no big deal.
I've seen like Ian Leggett's a good example. Like he's a great friend of mine, and we do a golf tournament together at Summit with a friend of ours, Bob Travis, and his family. called Stomp the Stigma tournament. And I've been with Ian where it's like, you know, I don't know if he's played or like it's been like over the winter. And he'll, you know, we played an event and he won it. Just like walking in there, like shot, you know, I don't know, 3 under each round or something, no problem. Just hoop-de-doo, no sweat. Like it's got to be nice, you know, when it's that easy.
Natural talent.
That's crazy.
Hope you guys are enjoying my kids are playing piano above, so I don't know if you can hear that.
Oh,
I don't think I'm not catching any of that.
You might if you can hear, might be able to hear it on if you're listening on the headphones. But
yeah,
it's been going on for the last half hour.
It's all good, all good.
Good that they're practicing.
Yeah,
love it. No problem. Jordo, any last notes before we wrap up? We're at the old hour mark at this point.
I mean, not so much notes. I mean, man, like this was fun. Like this was really cool for us as a whole. Honestly, Jer, like I would love to you know do it again, or even the next time I'm over with Luke's or whatever. Like
man,
don't be afraid to crash the party. I feel like there's plenty more stories to untie that are probably a little little too much for the podcast here for some folks, but no, man, like honestly, like I said, I you know, I'll let Luke kind of wrap it up, but just really appreciate you taking the time, man. Like this was really cool for us. Just even, you know, myself from an outside perspective, just growing up, listening to your music, knowing it through and through, you know, appreciating the music side to a very, you know, strong extent. It's just, this is really cool for us and for myself. But like I said, man, I really, really appreciate you taking the time tonight to do so.
Thanks, Jordo. Right on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, honestly, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Couldn't thank you anymore.
Always a good time. We gotta have we'll have a hang for sure. At,
there'll be some GBs coming in your future. Some good old garage beers.
Yeah, I'm in. Like I think Nutsy knows you don't take much to twist my arm. So whenever you need to, it's I'm a text away. Come down.
Good neighbors.
No. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Shout out North Six Sports, north6.ca, and all our Twitter handles and TikTok. Make sure you follow and check it out. But another episode of Soft Stomp in the Corner.
Super quick, pardon me, before we close out. Jared, just toss out what's the name of your podcast so we can get a couple people going and subscribing to that as well.
Sure, it's Taggart and Torrens, and actually there's Taggart and Torrens with Taggart N, the letter N, Torrens.ca. For all your info. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. We'll be sure to tag that there for sure and get a couple people following you your way. Absolutely.
Thanks, boys. Have a great night. Great times. Thanks.
You. Perfect. Yeah. Take it easy.
Cheers.
Thanks, boys.